Fans, welcome back. It's it's G.O.C. It's part 3 of A Complete Idiot's Guide to Pro Wrestling. Captain Lou Albano and Burt Randolph Sugar, A Match Made in Heaven. We are on chapter 15, covering modern madness wrestling today, novelty acts. This ain't no circus sideshow. Follow me on all social media platforms. You know what they are. Here on Guardian of Chaos on YouTube. In real time on Twitter at Big Daddy G.O.C. And the G.O.C. is the Guardian of Chaos. On Instagram, it's the Guardian of Chaos. On Facebook, it's J Brony and Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian. Also on Rumble, Gitter, Gab, Truth Social, Parlor. I cover it all in the IWC. This is where you want to be with the G.O.C. We're, again, part 3. Go back and check out the first 2 parts. The first monologue was 10 minutes. The second part was 25 minutes, talking about everything from cage matches to midgets to everything you can think of, to entertainment personified, one-man, unique, unscripted, unedited, raw reality TV with Big Daddy, your old buddy. So we're off the grotesqueries, the gargoyles, the novelties of today, and we're going to move on here. Remember the time frame. This is 1999, written from guys who covered this business from the 50s, 60s into the 21st century. This was released in 99. It's relevant still till today. So go back, check this out. It's an unbelievable book. It's what I've lived, what I'm trying to relate, what we do here on the channel for content to give entertainment back to you. So I appreciate everyone being here. On a Monday, it's nice and early. Where we are now, we just came out of Captain Lou's corner and Bert's corner. Remember the authors, remember the time frame. We're flashing back to make it current, to move to the future. We talked about everything in this chapter here, from novelties of today to the midgets, to the hillbillies, to beers. Bears. Unbelievable. So now we're moving forward to cage matches, barbed wire matches, everything you can think of. So stay with me here. Here we go. Chaos Corner. Caged competitors. What do you get when you put 2 wrestlers in a locked cage that stands 15 feet tall and tell them to fight at will with no rules? One heck of a sellout crowd, that's what. It might seem inhumane, and if the wrestlers were roosters or dogs, the bout would be illegal. We know that. But in pro wrestling, this is one scenario that's sure to get the fans heated. Maybe it's got something to do with history. You know, Roman gladiators fighting to the death in the Colosseum. In 2022, you never know what could happen. Let me get off that soapbox. We don't want to make it about that. We're here for a stress reliever. Thanks for being here. Well, today's gladiators of the squared circle stop short of death, but they pull out all the stops in their efforts to subdue their competition. Remember, fans, when this was written, when it was released, and what it applies to. What I'm relaying to you here. Get your notebook. Class is in session. Cage matches can be brutal. It's not at all unusual for the wrestlers to get slammed up against the walls, and the rough edges and burrs on the wire can inflict nasty wounds, especially on the face. Not to mention that the wrestlers are just as likely to use the wire as a weapon, shoving their opponent's head into it for truly the bloody effect. I can attest to that. Violent cage matches have a passionate following. Here are a few of the more notorious ones of past years. Remember, we're taking away the last 2 decades of when this was released. So for everybody here that's under 20 years old, no offense. I don't know if it's really my demographic anyway. Or they say it's from 18 to 35. I'm doing fantastic. Little people dropping off here and there. A big shout out to the UK, Canada, Egypt, Indonesia, all the different fans from around the world, down under in Australia, even some of the folks over in Russia. Everybody's tuning in here to Chaos Corner. Let's go to In Your Face, which is, as I've said in the earlier videos, like Captain Lou's Corner, Bert's Corner, WrestleMania, different sidebars. Here on the book, A Complete Idiot's Guide. No offense to anyone. I get it, okay? Lazy or unimaginative promoters can sometimes fall into bad habits, like overwhelming and overworking gimmicks, kind of like a lot of things I see today at times. Cage matches, for example, have been overdone at times. Promoters will sometimes use them even when they have no real justification in any storyline. It's about emotional psychology, ring psychology, emotional investment is what I meant to say. Bringing people back. That's what it's about, making it special during a rivalry, a grudge match. There's no other option or alternative, and that's the problem today. It's even here in the Bible of this. Remember that. Let's go to Bert's Corner. Burt Randolph Sugar, the legendary Burt Randolph. Go it, don't Google it. The Depression has been over for a long time now. Well, it's coming back in 2022. But promoters still find a reason to include novelty acts, usually as the opening match of the card. It's a good way to get the crowd warmed up, whether it be a three-way, a triangle, a battle royal, a rumble, a gauntlet, a tag team. Well, I get it, what he's talking about. You don't usually see it start off with midgets or ladies. Or, a lot of people now, it's trending to where back in the day, if you were towards the end of the card, the second half of the card, that was considered the bigger part, and the stars and co-main events. And now they start off with the main event as the first match. WCW Uncensored, as we look at some examples here on Chaos Corner. Thanks for being here. I'll say that to say this, because I tell it like it is. Part 3. Hollywood Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage did battle in a cage at WCW Uncensored. It was a no-holds-barred match of epic proportions, fought inside a steel cage that surrounded the ring. Hogan and Savage exchanged furious blows, and neither one was above using the cage or the wire against his opponents. It wasn't long before both men were bleeding profusely. At first, it was Hollywood Hogan. It looked like he was going to emerge the victor of the match. He got a hold of Macho Man by the back. Again, if you go back and check this out, you can do it on YouTube. Do your research. Distracted by the big screen over here. It's unbelievable HD on the smart TVs now, what it does in the sound and the picture. So I apologize for that. I could think of a lot of cage matches that I could throw in here too, and hopefully we'll get onto that. But we're Macho Man and Hogan, WCW Uncensored. Go back and check it out, fans. So as I said there, he grabbed him with intent. The freedom of the cage, however, was short-lived, and Savage was intent on getting his revenge from his earlier beating. I believe that's where I was. He got a hold of the Macho Man by the back, Hulk Hogan did, and slammed him to his face first into the wire, again, until it looked like Savage was a goner. But Macho Man isn't called macho for nothing. Machismo, as I like to say. He broke free and staged a comeback, and when the cage was unlocked, the two wrestlers brought their fight out of the ring entirely, if you remember, back to Uncensored. How are my reading habits? I went to college. Don't judge the book by the cover. Let's not judge anybody, please. Not that that means anything either. I know a lot of assholes and dummies that went to college as well. Their freedom from the cage, however, as I said, was short-lived, and Savage was intent on getting his revenge for the earlier beating. I already said that. Appalled at the sight of one of their own losing ground to the beating, Macho Man was administering Hollywood's fellow members of the New World Order to sweet. Don't say that too loud on here. You might get banned or shadow banned in the reality of the world. Think about that. Let that sing in for the NWO. Back in the day, we're talking, middle and late 90s, and look where we are now in 2022 politically. Again, it's hard not to intertwine it in the reality of the world, so bear with me on that, because we're here for entertainment. Let me get some wings and get off that subject, right? This is part 3. We're already almost 10 minutes in. I'm having a heck of a time on a Monday. The sun's coming up. It's going to be a beautiful day, one day at a time. Family, friends, pro wrestling. It's what it's all about, your faith. Listen, as I always say, repent, pray, prepare, repeat. You should put that on a Brock Lesnar shirt. That's what means something. Like the ceiling fans that has this blowing all over the place. I'm going to end up losing where I was. We're still at WCW Uncensored. As the rest of the New World Order comes in, they began to look pretty bleak for Macho Man at this point. He was beginning to look a lot like mincemeat. I like that word. Just when things looked bad enough for Savage, the situation took a turn for the worse. A dark figure descended from the ceiling. It's Sting! My best Tony Schiavone impression. Coming to lend a hand to the NWO gang, he landed right in the middle of the action, carrying his baseball bat, bloodied but unbowed. Savage grabbed the bat and belted Sting, knocking him right out of the action. Seeing his chance, the Macho Man made his escape from the cage, leaving Hogan and his NWO buddy standing in awe. Think about that. This is back well over 2 decades ago. Here we are in 2022, and Sting is still with Darby Allin and took a leap on Dynamite weeks back, or on one of the pay-per-views, off the balcony at 61 years old. You go back to here, he's in his late 30s, they're talking about, middle 30s. Wow. Wow spelled backwards is wow. WCW Uncensored, Macho Man Hogan with Sting. Check it out. Go back. We go to WWF get the F out. SummerSlam. Mankind, a.k.a. Mick Foley, who you know the history I have with Mick Foley, was matched against Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Triple H. How funny it all comes back around, right? In a cage match of epic proportions during the SummerSlam. But what started out as a typical cage match soon turned to something more. Lots more. Foley's idol was Superfly Jimmy Snuka. You know the rivalry I had there with Jimmy. Aloha, mahalo, rest in peace, Superfly. Remember the time frame here. He of the acrobatic leaps off the ring ropes. As a kid, Foley would jump off roofs to imitate the Superfly's famous flying leaps during cage matches. He once even hitchhiked hundreds of miles to see the great Superfly perform, and he worked overtime to perfect his imitation of all his heroes' famous moves. This would turn out to be crucial skill for Mick Foley, we learned years later. The story isn't 100% if you remember that. The masked Mankind faced off with Helmsley inside the 15-foot cage, warily keeping an eye on Helmsley's manager, the fearsome Chyna, rest in peace, Chyna, who was lurking right outside. The match seemed lackluster. Mankind just didn't seem to have his heart into the action. Helmsley tried to bring the battle to a pitch, but he was powerfully overmatched, and Mankind fought him off with relative ease. I disagree with that. It seemed like the match was a foregone conclusion and that there were no surprises in store. Mankind eventually brought Helmsley down. Remember, this is the Attitude Era, rendering him unconscious, and everyone thought the match was over, but everyone was wrongo el wrongo again. Suddenly, Mankind climbed out of the cage, swarming up to the top where he posed victorious for the crowd. His lifelong emulation of Superfly was clear. He even held out his hands, as I just did, in the same symbolic gesture to the Superfly made famous. From his precarious perch high atop the cage, Mankind jumped down to the land on the comatose Helmsley. The crowd roared, egged him on, and Mankind climbed once again to the top of the cage. Once there, he ripped off his mask and threw it into the ring. In that gesture, at that moment, Mankind was no more. He traded his freakish image for a new one, Dude Love. The rest, as they say, is wrestling history. Let that sink in. If you remember, go back and check it out, fans. One of the reasons why cage matches first came into vogue was the wrestlers started taking advantage of a technicality in the admittedly very few rules. We know that. You can't lose the belt on a disqualification. And the easiest way to get disqualified was to be counted out of the ring. To keep wrestlers from slipping under the ropes, promoters started putting cages around the ring. Hello, McFly, Bueller, anybody home? Once inside, the combatants had to stay there until the match had a winner, and we see that's all gone to the wayside too. Ceilings, cages falling in, people coming up from behind, Brock Lesnar with a tractor. That wasn't even a cage match. When worlds collide here on Chaos Corner, again, thanks for being here. It's Monday. I'm all amped up. I haven't even had my coffee. I still have the Red Bull. This gives me wings. When Worlds Collide was a cage match that combined American and Mexican wrestlers, and it generated a lot of heat among the fans when it occurred. Conan was pitted against Perro Aguayo in a cage match, and both were determined to emerge the victor. As is so typical in cage matches, this is a la lucha libre, both wrestlers turned bloody quickly. I can tell you that the fencing causes more than enough cuts to keep the case and the glaze and focus and clear it flowing. Say that 3 times fast. At one point, it looked like Conan was sure thing to win. He brought Aguayo down, and things looked pretty hopeless for the feisty Mexican. But Aguayo didn't even give up. He didn't even think about giving up, even though Conan had rammed him into the cage often enough to turn his face to mush. Aguayo's heart and stamina ruled the cage that night. Arriba! He turned the tables on Conan and earned his way to great victory and the respect of all the fans of all nationalities. Lucha Libre de Campeonato. When worlds collide, again, I remember it like yesterday, a cage with attitude. Any cage match is a dangerous situation, but when you replace the chain link with barbed wire, you've moved into a whole new world. I can attest to that as well, of potential hurt. Just ask Tenryu and Onita. They still have scars to show for their battle. When Onita and Tenryu got into it in Japan, they fought in a barbed wire cage that had electrifying added attraction of high voltage. Talk about extreme. Tenryu and Onita squared off in the cage, each sizing up the other and looking for an advantage. The atmosphere was tense, and the fans who'd flocked to the match in hopes of literally seeing sparks fly were wild with anticipation. The fans got what they wanted, and they got what they came for. Onita found his opening and threw Tenryu into the wire, and sparks really did fly. Go back and again, check this out on YouTube. I'm reading this here, and I'm looking back at you guys, and I'm putting my own memories. Even when I'm not looking, I'm going off script here. That's what we do. No, always notes and research and relaying this to you, especially if you can't get your hands on this, but to make it relatable and to make it to where you're getting your thoughts from me along with what happened from these two authorities and really what is 101 being taken to school. Think about the history here. Tenryu was tough and never gave up. In what was one of the wrestling's most wildest matches ever, Tenryu eventually got the better of Onita and emerged victorious and from the cage as the victor. We have another Captain Lou's Corner coming up. We're almost 20 minutes in on this one. Sticking it to them, more barbed wire matches. You don't need high voltage to make a match dangerous. Just plain old barbed wire, as we know, of the unelectrified variety. Check out AEW recently. Is more than enough danger for most wrestlers. It's a guarantee that one or both of the contenders is going to walk away with some serious injuries. And a la John Moxley, and nowadays every week on TV, somebody's getting busted open, and it's coming back to WWE as well. Which is why they pull in such big crowds, because people want to see this. It sells. It's got a niche. Captain Lou's Corner. In a barbed wire match, the most devastating move is to whip your opponent's face into the wire. You can tell barbed wire match veterans just by taking a good look at all the scars on their faces. Again, I told you, I was involved in 2 barbed wire matches. Unbelievable with legendary guys, I'll tell you. Yeah. Let me just move the glasses up a little bit. Sabu, Sax, Funk. 2 guys I also had a chance to work with. That's what you get here in Chaos Corner. Terry Funk is the undisputed master of barbed wire match. He seems to spend more time in the cage than outside of it. And you'd think, with all his experience, remember this is from 1999, over 2 decades ago, and relevant today, and to 50 years ago, and to 50 years from now. Talk about then, now, forever, future. I'll throw that in. He seems to spend more time in the cage than now, as we say. He'd soon run out of challengers, Terry Funk. But that's not reckoning with the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu, who faced him in a bid for the Eastern Championship Wrestling, ECW, we know that, belt, and proved to be more than Funk could handle. From the very start of the match, Sabu took control and wrestled like a man possessed. Since it was a title bout, no one was surprised by Sabu's aggressive intensity, but it still seemed unlikely that he could succeed at beating Funk, the king of the barbed wire match, at his own game. Well, Funk pulled out all the stops to defend his title and prepared to bash a chair over Sabu's head. While Funk was playing with chairs and looking for ways to put Sabu down for the count, he managed to get his head entangled into the barbed wire. At that same time, Sabu's manager, Bill Alfonso, got into the act. His interference infuriated Funk, who pulled Alfonso into the ring right over the barbed wire ring ropes. Ouch. Extended head break number 5. It's going to leave a mark. In retaliation to Sabu's constant and effective attacks, Funk finally managed to get a grip on his opponent and lift him high into the air. The fans weren't wild. Anticipating the next move, a slam of some kind was bound to follow. Everyone thought, anyway. What really happened was far worse, and every man in the audience cringing in their seats. Instead of running Sabu into the wire as per normal, Funk crashed his hapless opponent down, crotch first, that's my nutcracker, singing soprano on the waiting barbed wire. Well, I guess you don't need Manscaped, huh? Am I right about that? That one hardcore encounter with the wire wasn't enough for Sabu. He went looking for more. Intending to take his revenge, he mounted the top strand of the wire and prepared to jump on Funk. But maybe because of the pain from his recent confrontation with the wire, Sabu badly misjudged his move, slicing his arm wide open in the process. If the fans had come to the bout looking for blood, they certainly got their money's worth. But even with injury, Sabu was man enough to put Funk down and take away his title belt from him on that night. Let that sink in for ECW with Funk and Sabu. What do we have here next? We still have newer novelties, the Ladder of Success, Battle Royal, Crashing the Gate, Crossover Wrestlers, a Texas Tornado, and Table Fights. All right, we're at 20 minutes. This is segment 3. Fans, don't go anywhere. I'm coming back with segment 4. A complete idiot's guide to pro wrestling and the Guardian of Chaos. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. Listen, it's not even 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to be on part 4. All right, don't you dare miss it. Come on back. Come on back.